Hello? Oh, no worries. That the button keeps breaking up, by the way. Gotcha. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out who the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasm, the great devotions? Who spends himself in a worthy cause? Who, at the best, knows in the end the triumph of high achievement? And who, at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly? Ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you what, 346 3000 area code 585. Call us toll free 866 552 1009. If you can tell me where that quote came from, you earned yourself a $5 gift card to Dunkin' Donuts. I'll give you a hint. It is the 26th president of the United States. Now, listen, be on your honor. Don't Google that, right? Don't ask Siri or GPT chat or whatever it is that you're doing. Tell me who wrote it. Go on your memory, see? Mira, buenas tardes. Soy yo, tu conservative Nuyorican, Peter Vasquez, aquí on the Next Step Show in the WYSL Studios, como siempre, sí. Honored to be part of La Voz de Libertad, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, a fun fact for our familia out in Hornell. Did you know that Hornell, right, was once known as the Maple City due to its abundance of maple trees and thriving syrup industry? Yep, check this out. In the late 19th and earliest 20th century, it was a major railroad hub, right? Earning another nickname of the City of Depots, Depots, right? It was called, I believe, the Erie Railroad, which brought significant growth to Hernell and making Hernell a bustling center for train repairs and transportation. But check this out. I believe his name was Dan from Wellsville, had called a few weeks ago. So Erie Depot, which is in nearby Wellsville, New York, right? Just a short trip from Hernell, was part of this extensive network and played a huge pivotal role in connecting Western New York, right, to the rest of the larger Northeast towns. I think that's pretty amazing. I mean, we've got all this beauty in New York. We've got all these towns that have played such a significant role in making New York State the state that is ever upward, the Excelsior state, right? Many of these towns, right? Many of these towns, especially towns that had railroad service through them, played a significant role in the abolition movement. I'm just saying. Hey, Joe, thank you for for calling the Next Step Show from Allegheny County. Ah, you got yourself a Dunkin' Donuts card. Now, be honest. Did you look that up, or were you able to, or did you know it? Nice, nice. I love that statement because, I mean, whether you like the guy or not, I mean, that statement truly embodies, in my opinion, Joel, what it means to be an American, in my humble opinion, sir. Yep. Hey, oh, I will absolutely. I will. You know what? I'll tell you what. Let's schedule a date when I get a hold of you for the gift card. I will make sure that we connect. Yeah, is that okay with you? H- How's everything in Allegheny County? How's the political scene out there? It's conservative, and I know you guys came out pretty strong in the most recent election, but I also know that from the progressive side, they're moving into areas like that. Are you seeing an increase like that in Allegheny County? No, that's good to know. So we still have faith. Oh, I'll tell you what. Again, I'll get that information from you. Hey, Joe, hang on the line. Bob is going to grab your contact info so I can coordinate getting you this gift card, and I would love to drive out there and learn more and be part of it. Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time, Joe. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Joe from Allegheny County. He guessed it correctly. He knew it. He didn't even have to look it up, right? It was the 26th president of the United States of America was Theodore Roosevelt. And yes, he's the one that stated that. And see, I love that because when you say things like, and this has been my biggest issue with politics, is that I struggle with telling myself or telling others how great I am, right? But doing things because it's the right thing to do is truly what America's about. I mean, that's what created us, right? I mean, am I missing something here? Check this out. Talking about having a heart, talking about doing things for others, ladies and gentlemen. Today, check it out. Today is Giving Tuesday. In Rochester, you know it as Rock the Day, and actually throughout the country, I think you know it as Rock the Day, which is a social media push for Giving Tuesday. Right? It's usually the Tuesday following Thanksgiving. Right? It is a global movement. Check this out. It's not just money, ladies and gentlemen. It's giving of yourself. Right? Just kindness, acts of kindness. It's beginning the holidays and showing that, hey, you know what? Aquí in the United States, it has nothing to do with red or blue politics. It has nothing to do with Christianity or Muslim or Jewish or any of that stuff. It has to do with just being a human being. In 2023, U.S. donors on this day, right? U.S. donors contributed approximately $3.1 billion on a Giving Tuesday, reflecting though a small increase from 2022, like a 0.6%. Overall, this movement have seen participation decline by about 10%. Though, ladies and gentlemen, listen, we can't sit here and say, hey, we got to get big government out of the way, or hey, we got to not rely on the government, but yet see a decline of 10% on a day that's asking you to help us out so that we don't have to rely on the government so much. I'll tell you what, there's an organization that I happen to know. It happens to be the organization I lead. It's called Keuka Housing Council. Ladies and gentlemen, go to their website. You want to talk about affordable housing? You want to talk about ideas that are coming together with a phenomenal staff that's dedicated to solving, not putting band-aids on, but solving the housing crisis issues that we have, but also not just by providing four walls and a cop, because that's what affordable housing looks like in most states in this great country of ours. We're talking about a place that people can call home, a place that people can say, I'm proud to live in that housing program, and they're helping me take my next steps. And that's okay. Because again, humanity isn't left or right. Humanity isn't Republican or Democrat, a political ideology like what we see in every other aspects of society. No, it's not. As a matter of fact, I was kind of talking to myself recently, right? Because, hey, who's your better friend than yourself, right? And I asked myself this question: why does everything seem to have a political appeal to it? Everything. I mean, we can't even go Christmas shopping without it being a discussion on whether it's a conservative or a liberal agenda, whether it's, about Jesus Christ or not. Listen, I've got friends, right? My homegirl, Aisha, you guys know her. Aisha, if you listen, call me and chastise me for saying this, please, right? Because even Aisha, who's, her and I do almost everything together, or have for a long time. Our families have been tied forever, but even she'll say, Peter, you're crazy for celebrating Christmas. Jesus was born in some other time. I think she said June or September or something like that. 346 3000. If you want to kind of correct me on that. But I bring that up because, everything, even that discussion becomes a political ideology discussion, and I don't understand why. I have some friends, when I was doing more active with the Frederick Douglass Foundation of New York, which is still doing great things throughout this country, right? I think we're up to like 20 or something chapters, and there was a name change recently, new leaders since the late Bishop Dean Nelson had passed away. Some new leadership going on, and they're again doing great things. But you see, my question is this. It's not really a question, I guess. It's more of a statement. You know, if the situation, right, works to help people get on their feet and feel good about themselves, and you're not really lying to them and they're okay with it, why can't we do it? Mira, we're going to talk more about why is everything about political appeal right here on the Next Step Show on the Voice of Liberty, best station around. I'll be right back. No cambie ese dial. Thank you, sir. Okay. Welcome back to the Next Step Show, ladies and gentlemen. C. Soy Joe to conservative New Yorican. Hey, in case you didn't know, approximately 1.3 billion people worldwide experience significant disabilities, representing 16%. Listen to that number, 16% of the global population. That is 1 in 6 individuals, right? And check this out, 80% of those individuals with disabilities reside in developing countries, right? With an estimated 46% of individuals aged 60 and over they have a disability. But you know what, though? Here in the United States, we're worried about what color are you with a disability? Because it's dumbfounding to me how in this country, which is the only country that has things like blacks and whites and all these other things. Yep, challenge me on that if you don't think it's true. Why is it true? Because we're the only country that likes to put political ideology around everything. Because if it wasn't for political ideology, wouldn't we either be Americans or not? I mean, see, our heritage is important. Our culture is important. To me, I'm sure it is to you. I love my rice and beans just like my wife loves her pasta and her and I say meatballs, but you know, it is. There's a cultural identity that we have. But you see, when this political ideology ends up trying to take over, which is the cultural shift that we have seen. If you remember in yesterday's show, I had the Honorable Marcus C. Williams. I can't forget the middle name. He gets mad when I do that, right? Marcus C. Williams. And we were talking about, I had asked him about a cultural shift. Why is it that we still believe, right, that the solution to anything that we're doing is politics? I mean, it's definitely the barrier. There's definitely got to be politics involved. But see, it is the politics or the political ideology, more specific, that is well, that's exactly what is shaping our youth. That's exactly what is shaping our tomorrow, right? And unfortunately for us here in the United States, and here, especially in New York State, we have a governor, we have a policymakers, because it's not just hocus pocus, it's her apostles that she likes to recruit for and tell people to follow her, right? For her apostles and stuff, right? Here in New York, they've decided that if your belief, if your culture doesn't align with them, then you don't have a place to be here. You know that the Pew Research Center reports that as of 2024, only 15% of Americans hold mixed ideological views compared to over 30% in the early 1990s, right? Well, what does that mean? Well, the study that I read says that this shift reflects the growing alignment between personal beliefs and political ideology. Is that to suggest that up to the 1990s, people had no clue that what they believed and what were politics? I mean, last time I looked, this nation of ours has been pretty grounded on what we believe in from top to bottom. I mean, I know that sometime around the 1990s, especially here in New York, when this progressive movement really started taking a foot, right? When many of us meaning those of us that believe in American values, not political ideology, but American values of God, country, and family, right? Those of us that believe in quotes like Theodore Roosevelt, like I shared in the very beginning, right? Those of us who believe those things, you're going to tell me that prior to 1990 that didn't align or shape my political views? That doesn't even make sense. I mean, let's look at what they're doing these days, and this is what the left has been very successful, right? I mean, let's look at the Disney film Little Mermaid, the one that came out in 2023. We're casting the cast choices that were made intentionally to celebrate a progressive movement, right? That they do it under diversity. They said it's a diversity win. Now, I'm not going to get into a person's sexual identity because that's personal. See, but the moment that a politician realized that they can grab a vote or two by simply sitting there saying that this social issue is so critical and those of you that don't agree are so bad, well, that's how they've ended up gaining ground. But what do we do as people who don't disagree? Do we fight back? Do we figure out a way to do our narrative? I mean, come on, check this out. Looking downstate, right? Because New York City, according to many, New York City is the beacon of diversity, right? Because of all the programs they got out there. And the thing is this: whenever you mention programs, you also kind of have it just seems to always be tied to skin color. But that's a whole nother show. So you're going to be like, what are you talking about now, Peter? Check this out, right? Because see, this is what happens when we have a culture that is completely focused around political ideology, and political ideology for them seems to be the only solution, right? You end up having things like, like no transparency. And well, what do I mean by that? I brought it up quite a bit during my campaign for the clerk's office, right? No transparency. Money goes missing missing. The budget the services stayed the same. Income didn't really drop, but yet the budget keeps getting smaller and smaller, even though they touch some number. But you see, they do it at the state level, and this is where I don't believe for one second that politics is the answer. This is why I believe that what we need to start doing as leaders, as campaign managers of either issues or campaigns, as candidates, as people who understand that we need a change, as people who want to see what happened nationally happen, well, at a local level. Right? Because to see Monroe County and every incumbent win, I'm like, how the heck did that happen? Right? The discussion yesterday when we talked about like, well, what we were talking about in Pittsford, where they had the cars driving around with Palestine flags, which is perfectly fine under the Constitution. They have that right. Right? But then, we ask, well, how did that happen? How do we have anti-Americans, right, flying flags in this state saying that we're wrong and that be okay? Well, because transparency disappeared. And I'm not picking on Pittsford in general, because this is happening all over the place. But you see, let's take a look at what's happening all over the place. I mean, these are trends, right? Remember, Hocus Pocus had she had a terrorist. Okay, she had a spy, but aren't spies terrorists? I mean, really. In her staff, not even a clue. Morelli's staffer, a guy, what's his name? I forgot his name here. I think it's here somewhere. The staffer. Oh, what is his name? Oh, Hopkins. Hopkins is the communication director for the Congressman Joe Morelli. Was arrested Monday for unlawful possession of ammunition that they found. Now the guy claims that he forgot it was in the bag, right? And of course he's got fired. But this guy, he had high capacity magazines. As a matter of fact, one of the charges that he's facing, and we'll see how his connection in the Democrat Party can get him out of this, right? Because it's their stupid rules that made all these things illegal, right? But he went to work with high capacity magazines, apparently like 9 rounds, and a weapon, right? And this is a guy, right, who ran for Congress. He was the press secretary for then Congressman John Delaney, right? He for the presidential campaign 20. I mean, these are now look, this isn't exclusive, right? Oh, Democrats are the only ones that do it. But boy, they seem to talk a lot about everybody else doing it. They seem to talk a lot about how the right is just so wrong because they say that we are racist. I mean, this is all I keep hearing. And yeah, they're knuckleheads. I'm talking general here. Richie Torres, right? Representative Richie, Ritchia, a Democrat from New York, congressman, right? He's calling for another investigation. You remember a while ago, Hocus Pocus had said that she was going to fix the issue for elderly people receiving the care that they need at home, right? It was for the program that's known as CDPAP, or the Consumer Directed Personal Assistance Program, right? She gave and awarded an out-of-state organization millions and millions of dollars to be the sole fiscal intermediary on that. And he's saying, wait a minute. Now, what gets me is this. The only people who are going to investigate this woman, Hocus Pocus, is the Attorney General, or Tom DiNapoli, who probably should be going in there and saying, yeah, we should take a look at this. I mean, the governor is saying we don't need an investigation, right? She's saying that there was integrity because the Department of Health received over 100 proposals and selected the PPL, what they're calling the PPL, right? From thousands of independent and fair reviews, applications that were evaluated. So then what's the issue with an inspection? Listen, I'd say open the door. Open the door instead of accusing this Torres guy, this Torres congressman, right? Because he's probably as liberal as the rest of them, and he's looking to run for governor in 2026. So hey, keep a name out for or keep an eye out for that name just in case, right? But he did say this, and this is something that I agree with, right? That investigation that would be led by state and federal inspector general, right, for whatever that's worth, it brings accountability to a high stake process that at the moment has neither, right? So I have to ask again, why, right? A program that impacts, by her own measures, predominantly black and brown communities, that she's touting as something as the best thing since Swiss cheese, that she's saying she's making better, but yet refuses transparency. I mean, this is the whole mantra. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, the last 4 years or so has been spent. Okay, 2.5 years, right? Because no, it is been 4 years because Trump takes over next year, right? Has been riddled with allegations of this and allegations of that. The judicial system used to go after a president of the United States, right? But yet, but yet, instead of addressing the lack of transparency in that, right? She just sits there and says, "I want apostles." Mira, I'll be right back right here in the next step show. No te vayas. Thank you. You know, why is everything about political appeal? Why? I mean, look, published in Nature, right? It's a magazine. Published in Nature found that Facebook's algorithms deliver 15% more politically aligned content to users based on their browsing habits. Crazy, right? Things like, NFL players kneeling during the national anthem. Remember that? It's still happening. Why are they doing that? Well, because these people have found, again, just like politicians, that there's money to be made. In the politicians' case, well, there's votes to be gotten. Another Pew Research shows that 68% of Americans now view members of the opposing political party as a threat to the nation's well being. That's up 45% since 2014. Now, again, what's happened since 2014 to create these kind of divides? See, again, I've shared this before. I grew up in a time where I remember, politics, left, right, whatever. None of that really. I didn't really know it because it didn't really play a role. But I remember after elections, we all came together. I mean, market research indicates that 70% of millennials and Gen Z consumers prefer brands that align with their political and social views. That's according to the Harvard Business Review. Nike in 2018, right? When they did their Nike campaign with Colin Kaepernick, right? Remember him? That was also out in the field. I mean, look, we also know that research shows that Americans have been divided along cultural lines for a long time, 40 years, maybe even more. But this whole alignment or misalignment, I have to say, between cultural and political divisions, man, that has become right so pronounced that at least today you can't. People are afraid to say what they are. Like, oh, you can't say if you're a conservative, right? And if you're in a more conservative area, you can't say. Why is that? What really gets me too is that we talk and we've seen it over the same time period, right? This whole this whole claim or this whole narrative that that the system's against us, that the system is just automatically stacked against black and browns. And frankly, I think that the system is stacked against anybody, at least at this point, against anybody who doesn't agree with the mantra, right? Because if you're black looking for help, but you espouse conservative values, or you wear a mega hat, or you wear a red shirt, for crying out loud, you're going to get viewed a little differently. See, because let's not forget, right? The whole first black person to get elected to this, and looking at it from politics, or the first Hispanic, that never applies unless you are in the progressive movement. And if you're a Democrat who doesn't believe with this a big government overreach, guess what? According to them, you're not a Democrat either. But I ask, how is it that we have a system, right, that right now is saying, it's bad for blacks and browns? Looking at law enforcement, for example, or the entire judicial process, right? The entire mantra that we hear from every elected official just sits there and bashes it. If you're black or brown, if you're poor, if you're disadvantaged, of course, all that kind of goes under the black and brown umbrella, because apparently you can't be anything other than black and brown in New York State and be poor. Apparently that doesn't jive. I have a story of somebody who called me during my campaign, unfortunately, running for county clerk. That wasn't really, although I did send him to the right direction, but he was sharing with me that he went to DSS, right? And they actually told him, right? The caseworker that he spoke with, literally, he said to him that because he is a white male, that his opportunities are much larger, are vast in comparison to Well, people that are not white. This is what they told him. He couldn't get emergency food stamps. Now, I'm not going to get into whether he needs them or doesn't need them, whether the system is right. Listen, the system is there. So if you need it, go get it. And if you really need it and you're using it, well, I'd rather you use it because that's what it's for than somebody who's able bodied who's choosing not to. But how do we have this system that's completely creating this whole victimhood mentality? Police are bad, white people are bad, all this other stuff, but yet are trying to encourage, right? More blacks and browns, more women, more people in disenfranchised neighborhoods to join the police force. It doesn't make sense. I know I was talking to Rodney Brown, his wife Lachey is on city council, and I understand she's doing great work in the schools, trying to convince children that being a police officer is a good thing, being a fireman is a good thing, that helping your neighborhood is a good thing. But again, it's that same city council, her peers, that established or pushed out and pushed for the PBA, which, in my opinion, stole $5 million from the police force, that now we have the crime rates where they are. But yet, I haven't noticed an increase in blacks or browns or any other in the police force. And if the numbers are growing, it ain't by very much. As a matter of fact, it's my understanding that those training classes, right, are smallest than they've ever been. See, one of the main arguments is that criminal justice, including policing, has roots in historical oppressive structures that disproportionately target black and brown communities. I mean, I'll tell you what, you know who would probably be a better person to speak on all this is Kamala Harris. Let's not forget that she is one of the attorney generals, or was the attorney general in California, who incarcerated more blacks and browns. That's back before she became black. Let's ask her if the reason why California had so many blacks and browns in comparison to whites incarcerated had anything to do with race, had anything to do with a system that was just systemically against them. Right? So, we say if the system is systemically against these stated groups, right, then why is there also a push for better representation? Again, how can we have a push for better representation when we're demonizing in these communities what these police officers stand for? I mean, hey, 346-3000. Tell me what you think. Now, I will admit this. As a conservative, God, country, family, non-political statement, right? My same statement, right? I don't think that we can fully dismiss the concerns about systemic issues in our system. But I also believe strongly in the fact that individuals and community still need to remain accountable to their actions in order to fix these systemic issues that do exist. If we say the system is against someone, does that risk disempower the individual from taking charge of their own life? Doesn't it make sense, right, to stop pushing this whole police, judicial system, the Constitution, white people, all this stuff are against you, and instead focus on empowering the communities to solve their own problems rather than making it a racial issue? I was having a conversation with a self-proclaimed local leader, which usually equals a rich guy involved in politics, who can't let go. Just kidding. I'm not really, but just kidding, right? I said to that individual, I said, what do you think? There are no white people living in the city, living in the west side or the east side or any of these disenfranchised neighborhoods? Or like I've brought up in the past when I said, are disenfranchised neighborhoods really just isolated to the urban centers? Are there not disenfranchised neighborhoods in Yates County? Wait a minute. Yates County, that's the poorest county, or one of the poorest counties in the state. The entire county should be considered a disenfranchised neighborhood. Oh, but wait a minute. That doesn't fit into the narrative that the system is rigged against just black and brown people. See, I think this. I think the systemic issues that we have in place are the politicians, are the ones that have realized that if they can get you charged up emotionally, if they can get you angry at the other person, right, because they're saying, listen, I don't want my children or myself to be subjected to these political ideologies that you have or these sexual desires that you have, because the other narrative and gender identity and all that other stuff, that is specifically a sex thing. That's not even social, right? Who you choose to snuggle with, and no, I don't mean the actual intercourse act. I mean, right, the bonding part of it. I mean the close, that's personal. I don't know. Now, trying to see both sides, right? But isn't it what families, churches, and local organizations really try to do for the most part? I do housing. Listen, I can care less who you snuggle with. I can care less what you look like. And the thing is this, if you're cold and hungry and homeless, I highly doubt that a Republican is going to say, strap up your bootstraps, or your bootstraps and get to work. I don't think that's going to happen. And the thing is this, maybe one of the biggest, right? Maybe one of the biggest issues that we have with institutional type of systemic issues that are oppressing us in these days is a lack of trust in the system. I mean, there are bad police officers, there's bad human beings, no doubt. And I guarantee you, some of them may be Republican, some of them may be Democrat. But I am yet personally to meet a police officer that looks at somebody on their skin color or on their political ideology that says, I'm not going to help you. However, right? Like we recently broke the story here on this show just last week. However, many of the new people that are coming into the White House, into this new administration, including the president elect, the former president Donald Trump, right, are being threatened. Their lives, their children's, right? Shots have been taken, and there's no uprise. I do believe that we need to have systemic change. But see, systemic change has to start with you. Systemic change has to start when we find that balance as a society, when we find that balance as individuals in our faith, our politics, and our entrepreneurs, right? Ensuring that we're playing the best game of what it means to achieve our American dreams. Sí, mira, no te vayas. This is your Next Step show. Regresamos 346-3000. Give me a call. Thank you. Oh man, oh man. Hey, let that go for about 10 seconds there, senor. Hey, two-stepping cowboy. A little bit of Blanco Brown there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Next Step Show. See, Keith, thank you for calling the show, hermano. You know, Keith, about 20 or so years ago, maybe a little bit more, I was introduced to these agendas, like Agenda 2020, Agenda 2020, all those different things. You know what I'm talking about? Have you heard of those? Right, absolutely. I mean, I think most people, but the first one that I read was Agenda 2020. Again, this was a little over 20 years ago. And in there, they talked about how their target was going to be um, grade school kids around the third grade when they've already developed most of their reading abilities, or at least at a foundational level, with the intent of shifting future generations to the way of thinking. That was part of that agenda. And I brought it up, many people criticized me. But isn't that exactly what happened? Keith, thank you for the call, sir. I truly appreciate that. And ladies and gentlemen, he's not wrong. It is a dumbing down of our society. It is a hostile takeover of American values. And listen, don't be bamboozled, right? But by hocus pocus and some of your local officials, like, I'm going to say it, right? I mean, if you expect me to believe that there's no fraud in our election process here in Monroe County in New York State, then the alternative is that 60% or higher, depending on which town you were in here in Monroe County, want the crime. They want the high taxes. They want the anti American sentiments. They want the kneeling for the national anthem. They want the removal of God, country, and family from the system. Because otherwise, is there an otherwise? How can there possibly be? I mean, Mira, you've got a president, a buffoon, right? That as recently as November 8th, his press secretary, right? What is it? Jean Pierre or Jean Pierre, something like that, reiterated that no clemency would be granted, right? But yet, this past Sunday, I believe it was, yeah, it must have been this past Sunday. Biden defended his decision, citing what he describes as raw politics influencing the judicial process. See, this is the bamboozleness. Now, hang on a minute. We have an attorney general in New York State that said, right, that she's going to go after Trump, and her only mantra is race. That really, that's her only mantra is race. He's a racist. I mean, what was coming out after he got elected? We're going to be enslaved tomorrow. See, again, I can't. I don't understand. You, the guy says, right? The guy as in the phone says he also believes. He says he believes in the judicial system, right? And he should because his son would probably go to jail, right? But he believes that politics has infected this process, leading to a miscarriage in justice. Weren't we just saying that in a clear attempt to politicalize, right? And weaponize our judicial system against a former president, now a president elect? Just so you know, this pardon that the buffoon gave to his son Hunter Biden doesn't just cover the gun and tax charges. It's covering any offense committed by Hunter between January 1st, 2014 and December 1st, 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, right? Don't be the sheep, right? Don't always be the follower, although learn how to follow. Why? Because it's important to always be a leader, be a leader, be a leader. Emita, why? Because leadership is the beacon that guides us, for it's through selfless service that we illuminate the way for others to achieve their greatness. Y no te olvides, siempre aquí in the WYSL stations, te amamos, y hey, God bless these United States of America. Until tomorrow. No worries.